Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Waldo, and when you buy a used vehicle like this, especially one at auction, there could be all sorts of unknown issues lurking underneath. In this video, we're going to be doing some preventative maintenance, namely changing pretty much all of the fluids and filters to gain some confidence in this truck. This is Brandon, my 2005 GMC 2500 HD. I bought it at a salvage auction, and at only $3,400, I got a heck of a deal. It has the highly desirable 6.6-liter Duramax V8 diesel engine. My goal is to modify this truck tastefully while bringing it back to its former glory. We'll start out by changing the engine oil because it's already somewhat warm for me moving the truck around to shoot this intro. I think you'll probably see that one of the daytime running lights is out, but I actually bought a Denali front end and I'm going to do a swap later on, so I'll deal with that later. Alright, so I like to come in here from the driver's side to access the drain pan and the oil filter. So we get the drain plug right there, and then over here is the oil filter. And, you know, I just realized that the oil filter is sideways, which is kind of unfortunate because it makes it impossible to fill the oil filter up with oil before you reinstall the new filter. So, I don't know, it is what it is. Oh well. Let's see. 16 millimeters, fits pretty snugly. This is so awkward. I can't even. Ooh, nope, that was too much. That was too much. Oh my God. I just wanted to loosen it a little bit because I'm having a real hard time getting enough leverage under here because I have such little space. If I could get this socket off, that would be really nice, but I guess I'm not going to be able to. Oh well, I'm going to make a mess. There we go. Yeah, so I'll give that some time to drain out. So yeah, the reason why you want your oil to be hot when you do an oil change is because hot oil flows a lot more easily than cold oil does, and when you're changing your oil, you want to get as much of the old oil out as possible. In the amount of time that you allow it to drain, you're going to get a lot more oil out if the oil's hot than if it's cold. Especially in cold temperatures like this in 30-degree weather, if you didn't warm the oil up first and you just removed the drain plug, it would still be dripping days or weeks later. While we're waiting for that oil to drain, a bunch of you guys told me in the comments that these trucks actually came with names from the factory, and I believe it's just behind this trim piece right here. So let's take a look and see what the name is. Maybe it'll be Brandon. Be really careful not to start it since there's no oil in it. That'll work. Ha! Well, I found the name. It's not Brandon. Here, let me show you. I guess this truck's name is Cindy H. I honestly prefer Brandon. Well, that's cool, I guess. Alright, it's dripping now, so that is going to have to be good enough. Honestly, I don't think I actually let the oil warm up enough. But I have a lot of other stuff to get to, so we're going to move on. I really need a lift. It is hard working in such small spaces like this. There we go. I actually have a lift on the floor over there that I bought at an auction years ago. I just need to pour a concrete slab in here so I have somewhere to install it. Probably get to it next year. Well, I can tell right now that this oil filter is going to make a huge mess. So I'm going to use one of these expandable oil filter socket things. These things work really well for all different sizes of filters, so I highly recommend these, and I'll put a link in the description below. My God, this filter is really tight. Never have I seen such a tight filter before. This is ridiculous. There we go. We'll unscrew it a bit, let it leak all over the place. I mean, of course, I have my drain pan underneath, but sometimes I like to take an awl and hammer it into the side here to make a hole to let the oil drain out that way. That kind of drains the filter before I even unscrew it, which can make this a lot neater, but I just figured that's probably not going to help too much in this case.
Eventually.
And so for the new filter, I'm just going with an AC Delco factory. I'll get a little bit of oil on the seal here. Is it supposed to be this hard to get the oil fill cap off? So that should be fully tightened. That should be loose. Oh my goodness. Ah, there it is. So for oil, I'm going to be putting this. It's Mobil Delvac 1540. I got this because it was on sale at Tractor Supply. And it comes in a 2.5 gallon jug, which is really nice because I think that's the exact amount of oil that this truck takes. Yeah, I'm just going to do the whole thing and assume it's going to be the right level. I mean, I'll check the level, but I think it'll be right. Weird. It does not want to fit in this tube here. All right, we'll go ahead and start up the engine. Hopefully get plenty of oil pressure. Come on. Come on. That's a long time. There we go. That was kind of a long time without oil pressure, but that's what happens when you don't fill up your oil filter. For each of my vehicles, I maintain a spreadsheet with the date and mileage of all the maintenance items. It's very satisfying to add to the spreadsheet. It sort of makes me feel like Hank Hill.
I change my oil every 3,000 miles or when I get bored, whichever comes first.
So up next, I want to come back here to do the back of the truck and do the rear differential, mostly because I'm kind of tired of crawling around on the ground. Some of these bolts are a little rusty, so I hope that I'll be able to get them off all right. It took quite a bit of work. They put red Loctite on it. That makes sense. Okay, that's the rusty bolt. I wonder if I can fit like a 12 millimeter over that, bang it on. Nice. I did buy new bolts because I noticed how rusty some of these were. Last one. Hey, that's not too bad. Nah, that looks like a good, clean differential. You can see the G80 locker in here. Nice. I'll give that a little bit of time to drain out. This oil is pretty thick, and of course it is cold out, so it's going to take a while.
Later.
I always like to take a scraper and gently scrape off the old crud gasket material. I always like to take some acetone and wipe down the outside of this so that my silicone RTV will adhere nicely. Make sure it's nice and clean. Got a nice new diff cover. It's actually not very nice. It's kind of just new. Really careful not to move it around too much. Oh, I left that paper towel in there, didn't I? Cut this part out. It's sticking on pretty good. Oh, there we go. Yoink. So I'm just gonna snug this up just a little bit. You don't want to get it tight. I'll give it some time to dry, and then I can go ahead and tighten it up the rest of the way. Cool. Well, they say to give it 24 hours to cure before adding oil, and it's getting kind of late, so I'm just gonna give it overnight to cure, which frankly is more than what most people do.
The next day.
All right, so I believe the torque spec on this is good and tight, so we'll go ahead and tighten these down. These are only what, like M8 bolts? Yeah, so click, 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 click. 17. Full synthetic 75 W90 GL5. 4 quarts of it, hopefully should be enough. Yeah, I mean, we're actually just about at the top. You can see it starting to come out just a little tiny bit there. Cool, I think we'll call that done. Maybe on to the front differential next, see what's in there. So the front differential here is theoretically pretty easy. We got the fill plug up here and the drain plug here. The fill plug is a 15. Oh, it's tight. And the drain plug is a 13. There we go. Oh. That is some nasty looking fluid. Yeah, this definitely needed to be changed. And look at all that crud on the magnet. Can you see that? There's a lot of metal on this magnet. Look at how small the magnet is compared to all the crap that was on it. That is just something else. Much better. Well, while this is trickling out, I have 2 quarts of 80 W90, and I have this nifty little pump here, which screws onto the bottle and lets me pump it in here, because it's pretty awkward. I don't think I'd be able to get the bottle up there and squeeze it all into that hole. Well, we're basically dripping at this point, so I'm going to call that good. Kind of seems like this pump doesn't like how thick the fluid is. Wow. This is going to take a while. I probably should have left the fluid in the house. So it was at room oh Jesus. So it was at room temperature. I just let these sit in hot water for a while, so hopefully that makes this a lot easier to pump. Yeah, it seems to be working.
Much later.
Got fluid leaking out, so that is full. Alright, I've decided that I think my next video is going to be me installing this lift temporarily here in the barn. I'm going to pour a small concrete slab, just about the minimum size that I can get away with, and then I'll install these on top of it. And all of this is just going to be temporary to hold me over until I can build my dream shop, I guess, that I'm currently saving up for and planning for. Alright, we're back on the ground for now. So transfer case, we get the drain plug here, and then the fill plug is this up here. Of course, there's a big cross member here, which makes it a little tricky to see, but it's not too bad. There's a view from the top. So we got an 18 here. Huh. Well, that's interesting. This fluid is blue looking. This transfer case should take regular ATF, which is typically red. The ones that have the automatic four-wheel drive take the special GM Auto Track fluid. I'm not sure if that fluid is blue like this is, or if it's like a more amber color, but this is a little bit surprising to see blue fluid coming out of here. Alright, so I just checked and the Auto Track fluid is indeed blue, so that's what they installed in this. And I also checked and the Auto Track fluid is supposed to be installed in the new process 236 and 246 transfer cases, and this one, the tag up here says that this is a 263, so this is not supposed to have the Auto Track fluid. This is supposed to have regular Dexron 3 transmission fluid, so that's what I will be installing. Hopefully the Auto Track fluid is compatible with this. I mean, the transfer case seems to work, so hopefully no damage was caused. So to get the fluid up in there, I'm going to use this little fluid pump. It's kind of handy for things like this. Makes a little bit of a mess. Insert it into the hole. Oh, does it fit? It's really tight. It doesn't fit. It's too big to go in the hole. That's what she said. Okay, plan B then. I don't know what plan B is, but I'm gonna figure it out. Alright, we're gonna use the hand pump. It's not meant for these big gallon jugs, but it should work. Also, the lower viscosity of this transmission fluid makes it a lot easier to pump. Well, I see fluid leaking out. Yep, I can tell that it's full. Nice, it's pretty easy to do, but man, this hand pump sure does take a while. Just wipe this up so we can tell if there are any leaks. So next I want to replace the brake lines at the rear axle because they're quite rusty and they're not leaking yet, but let's be honest, they will soon, I'm sure. But before I do that, I'm going to remove as much fluid as I can from the brake reservoir because when I bleed the brakes, I add new fluid to this, and I don't want to be pumping the old fluid through the brakes because then it takes a lot longer, and it'll also dilute the new fluid, meaning it'll be a mix of old and new fluid going through. Anyway, let's just pump this stuff out. Yeah, it looks pretty nasty in there. I thought I remembered that, so definitely want to pump this stuff out. We'll just use another one of these hand pumps. Oh, all right, actually that fluid doesn't look that bad. enough. In addition to the brake lines, this hose over here, it's all rusty and kind of old, so we'll replace this as well. And look how loose this thing is. There it is. Let's catch this fluid. So yeah, the brake line from this point forward is still in pretty good shape, so I guess I'll leave that for now. Yep, you know your brake lines are rusty when they just snap off like that. Okay, of course, it breaks right off, naturally. Well, I got both brake lines out, and they're 3/16 brake lines, and it looks like that is a 3/8 fitting, so I can't for the life of me find my fitting, so I'm going to have to make a run to O'Reilly's. So to make a new brake line, we start with a piece of copper tubing that's about the same length as the old piece of tubing. Use a deburr tool to deburr the inside, except that I like to hold it like this, vertically-ish, so that the little copper chips fall out the bottom and don't go into the tubing. Dip the end in a little bit of brake fluid. This will help to lubricate it for the next part. Don't forget to assemble your nut onto the tube before you flare the tip. So we can stick the tube into the 3/16 hole. Now with this particular tool, I know how much to have the tip sticking out by putting this little die on here and making it come up to right about there. Now I can tighten these wing nuts down. Now this adapter goes in the hole, and then the crimping tool goes on like so, and I can tighten it down and basically tighten it until the tool bottoms out. At this point, I can back it off, pull this little adapter out, and then use the pointed tip of the flaring tool. And then I can tighten this down the rest of the way until it becomes pretty difficult to tighten. And that's probably enough. And there we have the flare with the nut. Very nice. To bleed the brakes, it's a lot easier if you remove all the wheels and tires. Ooh, that came off. Alright, before I forget, top this off with some fresh fluid. That's how it's supposed to look, almost completely clear. So I'm going to crack this bleeder screw here. I have a bottle here to collect the brake fluid in a clear hose so that I can see what's coming out of it. And then last I have a helper in the cab who is going to press and release the brakes as I open and close this to bleed the fluid out. Go ahead and press the brakes. Oh, I already had it open enough. There's a lot of junk that came out of there. Alright, go ahead and release. And press again. There's a lot of dirty fluid coming out, a lot of air bubbles. And press. Well, the fluid's coming out pretty solid now, and I don't see any air bubbles, so I think it's time to move on to the next tire. So I bled the rear brakes, and now I moved over here to the front passenger side wheel, and I totally broke off the bleeder screw on this, so I cannot bleed these, unfortunately. So I think what I'm going to do is just skip this for this video. The front brakes could use to be bled just because it's good to do, but they don't need to be. I can get by without doing it. I'll probably order a new set of calipers and brake pads, and as for the rotors, they actually are in really good shape. And there's very little corrosion here, which makes me think these actually might be really high quality. So I'm kind of tempted to just not replace the rotors. I mean, they look totally fine. But yeah, I'll replace the calipers and the pads at some point in the near future, probably not as part of this video. So I'm going to go ahead and do the air filter here. And, you know, I'm kind of putting off doing the transmission because I suspect that the pass-through connector is leaking, and I ordered a replacement for it, but it hasn't come in yet. It was supposed to be delivered today, and it's still en route from like Michigan or something. So hopefully I'll get it soon and we'll be able to do the transmission. Oh, that's tight. Oh, this one's coming off easy. Watch me ruin my airbox and need a new one. Probably just do a cold air intake or something. Filter's really not too bad. A little bit dirty in there, but got all sorts of stuff in this airbox that's not supposed to be there. Acorns, fecal matter from small mammals. Wicks. Quality filtration since 1939. All right, so next we're going to do the fuel filter, which is located right there. You do, however, get easier access if you remove the fender lining from the passenger side wheel well. It's pretty easy to do. So we got some real nice access to the fuel filter here. First thing to do is disconnect this water and fuel sensor. Let's see if I'm strong enough to remove this by hand. Oh, I am. Look at that. They actually make a special wrench to remove this sensor because you do have to reuse it unless you buy a new one. But, oh, it doesn't fit. Are you kidding me? I'm going to resort to using a pair of pliers. Oh yeah, that wasn't on there tight at all. Easy peasy. New filter comes with O-rings and directions. Good idea to lubricate this with some fuel, so I'm just gonna put a few drops from the old fuel filter on it. It's sealed with an O-ring, so it really doesn't have to be too tight. And of course, you don't want to break the plastic of the sensor or the filter, and I don't want it to be too hard to get off the next time I need to do this. And then this big O-ring looks like it goes right here. Oh, hold on a sec. The old O-ring is still up here. Definitely don't want to double up your O-rings. So with the fuel filter installed, we're back up to the top here and we have to bleed the system. So this right here is a pump. It's a hand pump, so you can press it like that. And then right over here, this little black thing is a bleeder screw. Now this is plastic and these often strip, and this one looks like it is a little bit stripped. So I actually bought a billet screw made out of aluminum that I'm going to replace it with. This is kind of an awkward position. Get this old bleed screw out of here. The new one was supposed to come with an O-ring, but it didn't, so I guess I'm just going to use the old O-ring. So we'll leave this cracked open a little bit, and then I basically can pump this I can hear air coming out. And once fuel starts to come out, well, we'll start by seeing bubbles come out. And then when there are no longer bubbles coming out and it's just fuel, then we should be good to go. So what this is doing is it is filling up the filter with fuel. So there was really no need to pre-fill it. All right, we got some bubbles. It looks pretty good. That's all regular old fuel, so let's tighten this bad boy up. And it doesn't need to be tight because it is an O-ring seal. Alright, so my pass-through connector part came in, and then I crawled underneath here and realized that the pass-through connector is back here, and this is kind of the area that I'm looking at for the leak. And so, whatever, I'm just gonna drain this and take it apart, and we'll take a look at it and see what the deal is. First thing we'll do is drain this. I love transmissions that have a drain hole. It's really nice, because I think Billy Bob's transmission, or the one that he used to have rather, the 4L80, that one did not have a drain. So in order to drain the transmission, you'd have to just pull the pan off and make a huge mess. So this is really nice, being able to get almost all the fluid out before you remove the pan. Ready? Whoops. Still make a little bit of a mess. Yeah, fluid looks pretty good. Well, this is draining, so we have an external transmission filter right here. There's also an internal filter in the pan, which is kind of cool. This thing is rusty as heck, so it's pretty obvious that this thing is due for a change. Alright, well that's good enough. I'm going to remove the rest of the fluid when I pull the pan down, but there's such a small amount of fluid left that it's not really going to be a big deal. Now we'll grab this filter. What's up with this thing? There we go. There's also a magnet on the filter here that you want to take off and install on the new filter. I love it when they put magnets in things. Like, it's really thoughtful design. I guess it's not really that thoughtful. It's kind of obvious to do, but still, it shows a little bit of effort, and that the designers, the engineers, and the people in charge of their financial decisions cared about making something that would last. Wipe all the old metal off of it. Look at all that. There's plenty of it. Get a genuine Allison filter to replace it. Lubricate it a little bit. Throw the magnet on there. Nice. The old filter should just pull right off. Oh, Jesus. And then my new filter is a Wix filter. I hope I got the right one. Comes with a gasket. When I say I hope I got the right one, there's a shallow pan and a deep pan, and it's not really obvious which is which necessarily, but it does look like I got the right one. There's a little seal on the top of this, and it looks like the seal from the old one stuck in there, so I'm going to want to remove that. There we go. Get a little bit of transmission fluid on the new seal. I'll just use some of these drips up here to get some clean-ish fluid on it. Rub it around. Oh, that's really snug. My GoPro lost the footage of reinstalling the pan, so sorry about that. I just ordered a new compact camera that's not a GoPro, so hopefully it'll be more reliable. These GoPros really cause more headaches than they're worth. Alright, so I just looked up the torque spec, and it is good and tight. Click, click. Click, click. Nice. So we'll fill the transmission up through the transmission dipstick tube. This is going to take a little while, isn't it? It's a pretty small tube, so I can only pour so quickly. I think it takes an initial fill of around 7 quarts or thereabouts. And then obviously we will start it up, go through all the gears and run it just to see, let the valve body fill up. And then you check the fluid while it's running to get the right level. All right, so I added about 6-ish quarts, checked the level. It's above the full cold level, which is good. Once you run it and go through all the gears, we'll expect the level to go down, and then I'll check it again and add as necessary. Now I'm gonna start it up, and I haven't started it since I did the oil change, so, change the fuel filter and all that stuff. I think it'll start, so let's find out. Making really weird noises though. I don't know if you can hear that noise. The brake system is not happy. It's actually probably the power steering pump and the hydro boost unit. I noticed there was a little bit of a leak in one of the power steering hoses, so I ordered some new ones of those. But in the meantime, I'm gonna have to put up with this noise. Anyway, let's go into reverse. Yeah, the level is definitely low. It's below the cold range, so I'm gonna add some more. All right, yeah, we're still low, so I'm gonna add even more fluid.
Eventually.
There we go, almost to the top of the cold range. We'll call that good. Well, I got pretty much everything on my list done, so that feels good. And what feels really good is filling out my spreadsheet with all the individual items. As for getting this lift installed, I really do plan on doing it. It wasn't just me being upset in the heat of the moment about having to crawl around on the cold, hard, dirty ground with no space under the truck. I went to Home Depot yesterday in Billy Bob, picked up a pallet of concrete, and so tomorrow I'm gonna start digging in here to make a foundation for where I'm gonna be pouring the concrete and installing the lift. So stay tuned for that. So I have a little bit of channel housekeeping for the dedicated fans who stay till the end. I've noticed at this point that when I build things from scratch, things like the flatbed build and the gooseneck trailer build, these videos do really well. There's a ton of interest in them and it grows the channel, which is really great. I'd like to do more build series like this, but the hard thing for me is coming up with ideas. So I would love to hear from you guys if you have any ideas of things that I should build. The idea for the gooseneck trailer build series actually came from you guys. YPop commented on the flatbed build series and suggested that I build a gooseneck trailer next, and I have to admit, the idea never even occurred to me. I knew that gooseneck trailers were very expensive, and I actually didn't even plan on buying one. I built a gooseneck hitch onto my flatbed because I figured it would be nice to have, and maybe someday I'll have a gooseneck trailer, but I never planned on having one this soon. So I do read the comments and I love to hear from you guys, and well, look what happens when I listen to you. So please do let me know down below if you have any ideas on what I should build next. Well, not next because I'm building an aluminum flatbed for this truck up next, but really I'm looking for what's coming after that. Thank you so much for watching, and we will catch you in the next one.